He's Peter King, Monday Morning Quarterback must read. Sports Illustrated, also NBC Sports. And Peter joins us now. Combine storylines here, Pete. If there was a headline, what would it be with the Combine starting this week in Indianapolis?
Oh, I guess it would be, can any of these quarterbacks confound what everybody in the NFL is saying, that not only are there not any sure things, but I've talked to at least three decision makers in the NFL who said they wouldn't take a single one of them in the first round. Now, two of them have quarterbacks, so when they tell you that, you take it with a grain of salt. The fact that they're not going to grade a guy in the top 32, which is basically what I asked, it tells me that maybe they're also grading not to they're grading for team need, and they don't need a quarterback. But I think the one thing about this year, Dan, is I think at the Combine and in the next 9 weeks of the draft process, we're going to learn that this is sort of a catch-up year. This is a year where there's a lot of teams that need things other than quarterbacks, because in the last 2 years, there's a total of 12 draft choices in the last 2 years who are starting. Assume you count Blaine Gabbert as a prospective starter. There's 12 guys who look to be starters on opening day 2013 who were drafted in the last 2 years. So it's a little bit unnatural to think that you're going to keep drafting 6 guys a year who are going to walk in and start. It just doesn't work that way in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, if you're Kansas City, you want to make a splash and you want to get a quarterback, but you got to get somebody you can pencil in for the next, 5 to 7 years that will be impactful instead of rolling the dice.
Well, either that or what you do is, I think what Kansas City should do is, offer their fourth-round pick high in the fourth round to San Francisco for Alex Smith, and mentally say to yourselves, if it's going to take a third, we'll give a third. Andy Reid has got to have a quarterback who's going to be able to play competently and win. So I think it's either going to be him or Nick Foles who they target. And even if they do get him, I still think Reid and John Dorsey, the new general manager of the Chiefs, are probably going to target a college quarterback sometime in the first 3 rounds.
But you can get Alex Smith, you think, for a third round? Obviously, you have to pay his salary, but it's a third round could get Alex Smith?
I would be surprised if the 49ers succeeded in getting a 2 for Alex Smith. Maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe they will. But I think that if you pick at the top of the third round, that's a realistic pick for a guy who everybody knows. Now, the 49ers can say whatever they want, but Alex Smith is not going to be on their team on Labor Day. It's not going to happen. They're not going to have a guy around who played good soldier. Let's look at this realistically. This guy was the top-rated quarterback in football when he was benched. And he played nice for the next 10 weeks through the Super Bowl, did everything he could to help his team win. Do you think in the prime of his career that he's going to be a good soldier, coming to training camp and accepting being an $8 million backup quarterback? If I were him, I sure wouldn't.
Talking to Peter King from Sports Illustrated, his Monday Morning Quarterback, SI.com. Joining us, Dan Patrick Show. More questions at the Combine, Manti Te'o or Matt Barkley?
Well, since apparently, what Adam Schefter wrote today is that Matt Barkley's not going to throw. So, there are going to be, if I thought that, I think you have to add in Alec Ogletree, the guy who was going to be a top 10 pick, probably even with his positive college drug test, until he got the DWI recently in Arizona.
The Georgia linebacker.
But, that guy is he might have been the first linebacker taken. He's really a good player. And so, him, Te'o, everybody's got to figure out, can we take this guy onto our team? Is he either so incredibly naive that he's going to start? I think Te'o is going to be fine. Somebody's going to pick him 20 or something like that and not have any regrets. He's a good player. But I mean, the Matt Barkley thing is weird because, a week or two ago, he said he was fine. He couldn't wait to get to the combine and blah, blah, blah. Now, all of a sudden, he's changing course. It's going to send up incredible red flags if he's not willing to throw at the combine, basically, 4 or 5 months after an injury that he and the UFC people described as really not that severe. I mean, what's it taking? Why is it taking so long? Is it worse than everybody thought? And that'll be the kind of questions he'll get.
The Jadeveon Clowney topic that now he should challenge the NFL, which I thought was ridiculous because by the time it's heard, his class will be graduating. The NFL would drag this out. But could you see a day where it's 2 years in college football? Is it always going to be 3 years until somebody challenges, or I know Clowney is a special case.
The problem is, Dan, who's going to challenge and have the money and the stick-to-itiveness to challenge a case like this? To me, it almost has to be a kid who is the LeBron James of high school football. A kid who is going to be a senior and yet in high school, and yet everybody believes that he could walk into the NFL tomorrow at whatever position, I don't know, and walk into the NFL tomorrow and play. Now, we've seen that guy. We really haven't because of, physical differences in 18-year-olds and 22-year-olds. But the only way that it'll ever happen is if there is a high-powered, very well-backed lawyer who's willing to take this case, and a guy, this John Doe, this LeBron James of football, is willing to buck the system and challenge the system. The problem is, Dan, in basketball, I read in the New York Times over the weekend of a fifth-grade kid in Florida who's the starting point guard on his college or his high school basketball team. Are there any fifth graders in the United States who could play varsity football at a high level anywhere in the United States other than at a tiny school? It just is totally different. So I don't see it happening, but the only way it would happen is if some lawyer with a lot of money got behind it, because the NFL will fight it tooth and nail.
Johnny Manziel, redshirt freshman when he won the Heisman. So after this next season, he'll be eligible for the NFL draft, correct?
Yeah, right. This was his second year in college this year, so next year will be his third year. So the first year he'll be eligible will be the 2014 draft.
But you're looking at, we see people, and it's a copycat league. You don't have any of those quarterbacks that you can plug in and say he's Russell Wilson or he's Colin Kaepernick. Johnny Manziel is that kind of dynamic, but I don't know at what point does somebody say, or does he say, hey, now I'm ready to come out? 2 years in college playing, now I'm coming out, and my style fits a little bit better with the NFL. Is he a Russell Wilson type because of his size?
Well, he will be, but I think the one thing, and this is just some of the, and I'm not a huge college football watcher in the fall, but I think if you look at the tape and look at a lot of things about Johnny Manziel right now, I think there are two things about him that are different. One, he does not have the arm of Russell Wilson. He's got a decent arm, and I think that in the right circumstance, he could play, and he could play in the NFL, no question about it. But I hear everybody comparing him to Russell Wilson, and I think that if you watch some of the throws that Wilson made this year, the throw that Russell Wilson made that I believe was like 52 yards in the air to beat the New England Patriots, the bomb to Sidney Rice between two New England defenders way downfield. It was the winning touchdown pass. That's a throw you've got to make in the NFL. That's a Joe Flacco-type throw. And I don't know if Johnny Football makes that throw right now. Maybe he does. I don't know. But that's the one thing that that in just watching him, it looks like he struggles to throw the deep ball. I think the second thing is everybody talks about Russell Wilson and his mobility, and, boy, what a great runner. Russell Wilson runs around to clear his receivers to get them open. That's why he runs. He doesn't run to run. He doesn't want to run. And I think that's the difference between him and a lot of quote-unquote option quarterbacks. All he's trying to do is move around in the pocket until his guy gets open. And, you know, that's 90% of the time. A couple times against Atlanta, he ran to run. But I guess what I'm saying is Johnny Manziel has to prove that he's going to stay in one piece and he can throw the ball downfield deep, I think, in order to be anything more than like a middle to low round pick in the NFL.
Good stuff, Peter. Appreciate you joining us. Thank you, sir.
All the best, Dan. Thanks.
Peter King, Sports Illustrated. Monday Morning Quarterback, SI.com.